Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about what could or could not have been a massive and utter disappointment. Basically, a follow-through for what we covered in our Zone 2 matchups for the largest KvK group in history, which is SOS 1-3, even if it is only by a smidgen. We have four of the biggest alliances and four of the biggest kingdoms in the game: NOIR, TFS, EIS, and BxS. And we're going to talk about everything from showing you some data. We're going to talk about the zones. And then we're also going to talk about, okay, well, how was this a disappointment? And what does the future look like for this KvK group? And then also, if I remember, and the short-term memory loss doesn't kick in too hard, right, what can maybe the devs take away from this so far as a learning opportunity? As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up, because it helps out a lot. So let's start off first and foremost and go over the one and only Zone 2 matchup that actually played out, right? Which is TFS, AFS going up against BxS and SXB. Now, their pass has, I think we're still within about 24 hours or so. We're probably coming up to about 24 hours, give or take. But at the moment, the entire PvP lasted, and I'm talking where it was back and forth, for probably about 8 hours or less. Again, it looked like it was maybe around 10 hours less for me. Someone had mentioned to me yesterday when we were in VC, and I'm forgetting the name, so apologies, had mentioned it was, I think it was our boy BA. I'll just say that. And had said that it probably was around 7 or 8 hours, right? And if that is the case, which again, it didn't look like it was over 10 of consistent back and forth fighting, when you think about how big the alliances are and the power, right? And let's just show some data real quick to hammer the point home. So this was the matchup, right? It was 351 T5s versus 290 T5s. There was a +9, 100 mil plus. So this is not crazy different, right? Sure, TFS has 61 more T5s, but the fact that you only had 9 more 100 mil pluses means that it is still a little bit closer, right? The fact that the numbers are not widely outrageous here, and we only ended up getting about, right, 7-8 hours of PvP, part of that worries me a bit. Now, keep in mind, there's kind of two ways to look at this. One, maybe BxS and SXB just found that there wasn't good uptime. Maybe they didn't have good activity coming in. Maybe there wasn't a lot of people online during that first kind of 12-hour window. And they felt, look, we're just losing so much ground. Even if we end up getting a lot more people back on, it's still going to be, pretty much an uphill battle. So maybe they thought, let's just go ahead and call it. And we'll still do some fighting, but we're not going to go as hard as we were. We'll save, we'll prep for Zone 3, especially once those level 4 passes open. And obviously they'll be able to get some help from EIS as well. So, and EIL. So, right, maybe that was the thought. Or maybe it was, no, we did go all in, and we just got raffle stomped, right? Which, to be fair, again, objectively speaking, for how the map and the territory look so far, the fact that the fighting only lasted around that amount of time, and TFS and AFS were more or less making ground, and from what we can see now, we're able to consistently push and gain territory, it very much looks like within the first day, sadly, and it is sad to say, and it's not sad on BxS's part or sad on TFS's part, it's just sad that the fighting lasted only about 7 or 8 hours, right? Of like consistent back and forth. You're still at the 50-yard line. No one's really making any kind of major headway, right? That's what we're talking about. And so that, to me, I categorize, when you're talking about having 4 of the biggest kingdoms and 4 of the strongest alliances in the game, right? And for context, let's provide a little bit of that. So let's look at kingdoms, right? So we have, oh God, hang on, I have to remember now because part of me feels like my brain is malfunctioning. What is it? 5, 23, 61, 70. Okay, there we go. So 5, 20, 23, 61, 70. Okay, so let's go to, where was I? Okay, so 23, 61, 5, and 70. These are literally the top 4 kingdoms in the game, right? And we pulled this data a week ago. When you look at alliances, right? Let's go to our Alliance tab. What do we say? 523, 6170, right? So bam, here you go. 70 and then 5, right? So you have 4 of the top 6 alliances in the game. And when you think about that, they are, again, probably, I would be shocked. Oh, well, sorry, yeah, they're already at level 50 for gift because, yeah, there's no more resets. So I was going to try to make a really lovely point about how, oh, yeah, look, they're probably already at like level 35 or something like that because they're spending so much. But the point is that if you are a top alliance and you're a top kingdom, especially when you're in the top 4 and you have 4 of the top 6 alliances that are in this KvK group, you would expect the fighting to last more than 7-8 hours. And I would argue I would have expected this to maybe last a couple days, right? That was my realistic expectation going in, was that we were going to at least see minimum 1 day. But I was really more in the realm of like 2 to 3 days of consistent fighting before we really kind of crowned, someone who's really making major movement on the map. And so now there's a little bit of a resistance happening, but not too much. I mean, you can see here TFS and AFS, just consistent activity. They are flooding right now the SXB territory. They're already in. Let me see. Maybe I just have to go back down to, oh, no, we're fine. So, again, right, you can just kind of see, right, our boy Jake Easy there on the front. Right there, they're kind of in here. They're already, I think, working down this flag. Let's see, I don't know what they're at right now. 35, 36 minutes until that's done. They're coming over here and doing some fighting. Might be, but I don't know if they're not close enough to touch that flag. So they're probably going to have to get this one and then go. But again, still great activity, right? I mean, SXB's there. BxS has still been fighting here and there. But that, like I said, man, I very much feel that in the next 12 hours, I would be shocked, if not maybe in the next, maybe 6 hours is probably more accurate, right? But we'll say maybe 6 to 8, that the territory isn't going down. Because, I mean, really, at this point, right, they might just, it'll be curious on the strategy they take here, because the fort's there. But do they care to kind of disconnect the flag here and then, just not, I mean, again, the fort's there, so it probably doesn't matter. It's probably better for them just to kind of straight go west beeline, right? So they'll do this flag, this flag, this flag there. So they probably have, 3 or 4 that they need to place to get to the fort. But once that's done, right, the zone's done. And so, okay, then we get to, well, what comes next? Okay, well, let's look at some of the other zone 2s real quick, right? So NOIR is building, NO2 and NOIR are building into Palanos, right? Now, they're clearly doing a little bit of a slow build. They're not even building over here anymore unless they just got that flag down. NO2 has stopped building at the moment. They're not really doing anything. You could see no one's taken any of these passes, right? So basically, NOIR is Pablo Escobar swinging on that swing in Narcos, just waiting for a little bit of attention and maybe a handy. Okay. However, NOIR has built in Agoru, going a little bit farther. Now, what did we hypothesize in our video before when we talked about the Zone 2 matchups? We said, okay, well, what is NOIR going to do? Are they going to just go all in and build to each pass and just defensively bunker down? Or are they going to take more of a, come on, just, you can do it. You can do it. Just, dig, push. There you go. Sorry, I started thinking of Jurassic Park, where the grandpa, he is Hammond. He's got the little baby velociraptor, right? And he's telling him to push to break out the egg. Like, that's exactly how I wonder if that's what is going through their mind right now. Just like, come on. So again, they've stopped. Is the short version, right? It doesn't look like they're doing any more building beyond the bridge choke. I wonder if they're going to build over here and maybe beyond that choke as well. But they have given them a little window, which I will say I commend. I do find that somewhat, even if slightly, just respectable. Only because if they did want to come and fight, they're at least giving them a teeny bit of hope. A teeny bit of cushion, I should say, right? Compared to if you're just kind of, spawn camping, so to speak, the bridge, right? So you get a little teeny bit from me there. Now, would I have actually been okay if they just set up here on the top of the ramp, so to speak, and then maybe over here on the west side or on the east side, right, too, as well? if they wanted to do it that way. Right, so like maybe they flagged out kind of covering and then kind of allowed for them to kind of choose what side they wanted to fight on, and then NOIR would kind of like TP wherever they needed to. Sure. However, I mean, do I think that do they really maybe need to do that? Because it probably is okay or a little easier for them to be more centralized just because they have the beeline there and they can go right there from the bridge. So kind of being here around this, whatever this is called, mirror flow river, whatever, we'll just say being north of the level 2 Spire here and the level 3 Thunderbird, this is probably an okay spot for them to be if they're looking for more of a centralized position. Now, let's see what's happening over here in Nivola with EIS, right? What position are they taking? Are they mimicking? Are they doing something similar to what NOIR is doing, where they're kind of leaving them a little breathing room in case they want to come out and fight? Let's see. Okay, so no more flagging over here from EIS. How about from EIL? Are they doing any more flagging? Okay, they're not doing any more flagging. However, they have taken a defensive position and built their siege bastion right in front of the choke. Okay. I guess we'll have to see how that one plays out. But again, right, and so they've kind of built, okay, I see. So they basically have built to each choke, but they are allowing a little bit of space in case TFS and AFS do want to come out and fight. Again, I'm okay with that. Right, you get a little bit of respect from me on that one. Would I find it a little more respectful if maybe we went midway? However, I get that, but at the same time, I would just say this: if they do not come out at all and they don't come and fight, then I'm more okay with this. If they do actually come out and fight, then I'm still okay with it, but it is just a tiny bit, right, like less respectful. But I still, overall, at the moment, do find this to be a little more respectful because they are at least giving them some space right here to expand if they were to come out and fight. So, again, got to give the flowers where they're due for both sides. Now, let's get to one of the next steps that we see here. So far, out of 4 Zone 2s, we have seen 1 Zone 2 that got action. Excuse me. But there was barely any action to provide. So what happens once we get to Zone 3 and we get there, where the first pieces of action we'll see is going to end up being at the level 3 passes for statue. But then what you have to keep in mind is once the level 4 passes open, this is where I foresee the KvK pretty much ending at this point. Meaning, the only alliances that are probably going to end up making it to Zone 4 or Final Zone is probably just going to be TFS, AFS, and NOIR. And that is because of the way the passes open, right? So remember, the passes open up in order of number, where you're going to have the statues level 3s open, and then the level 4 passes are going to open, which means that they will be able to occupy, if they wanted to, every single Zone 3. And I also anticipate that this is where the majority of the fighting, and basically the pinnacle fighting, is going to happen. And so then you have to think about, right, and we'll talk about this, we'll talk a little bit more detail about this probably in a different video, but I will just say that once you have EIS, because they're going to be going into Isanor, right, so they'll be going to Isanor, you'll have NOIR that's going to go into Atherin. You're going to have BxS go into Telemachia. Why do I feel like that's something from, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the anime that I watch with that Machia character? High School, something, MXH. What is it? Whatever. It's escaping me right now. You guys know what I mean. And then TFS, AFS is going to go into Akura, right? And so basically what's going to happen at this point, and this is what I think, potentially is going to happen, is that EIS and EIL are going to come in on TFS, AFS, and then BxS and SXB are going to go in here from Akura. And they're going to grab these level 4 passes as fast as they can, and they're going to try and make as much headway as they can, right? They're going to 2v1, right? And then NOIR is basically going to attack them from the back line, right? So they're going to come in, right? I would imagine NOIR will probably try and double expand here, where, I mean, they could also just go after one, right? And, because you have to think about it, TFS maybe could hold both for a period of time until NOIR gets there. So is that a better play where NOIR and AFS or AFS, TFS basically play more of a defensive hold, right? So an example of this would be they attack their level 4 passes and then they just try to hold at a choke point, right? And kind of do like what BxS and EIS did in that Tamara season, right? Where they kind of basically built to a defensive position and then just held. They didn't really push at that point. And right, they took that objective victory for Dragon in that season. So will TFS, AFS kind of take a page out of the BxS and EIS book where they kind of build to this level 3 Spire, maybe they build to a choke at that point, and then they do the same thing up here, and then they just like really bunker down. They just basically go full turtle, and then they allow for NOIR to either do a double push from Matherin, where they then are pushing behind EIS, EIL, and then also behind BxS, SXB, or will NOIR opt to push one side more heavily than the other, basically crush the other side from the back, right, with probably some assistance from TFS, AFS, right, so it kind of becomes a sandwich in either Telemachia or in Eisenor, and then they'll go to the other side, right, so they'll kind of like do the reverse 2v1, but just wait for the help to get there. And then on the same side, will EI, because you have to think about it, right, and I guess I should state this as well. When the level 4 pass opens, right, and again, I was purely speaking if TFS and AFS are able to get through the level 4 pass, but the level 4 passes are going to be contested, right? So it's probably going to be nonstop rallies, which means that if NOIR, right, because again, if they're trying to do the 2v1 and they're trying to get into AFS, TFS territory and just do as much damage as they can, they also have to worry about, well, what is NOIR going to do, right? Are they going to be able to defend the rallies on the level 4 passes going into Eisenor and or going into Telemachia, which is, again, right, for NOIR, their enemy's territory? And then how are you going to play that? Because part of me feels like NOIR is probably going to have a little bit of an easier time breaking through the level 4 passes than TFS, AFS is, right? Again, if they're trying to do both, and EIS and BxS are just purely focusing everything on one pass. So that I think is what interests me. And then how much are we going to see? Are we going to see NAF or other people basically like once they get into the zone trying to like keep doing random TPs to get a little bit closer and then just absolutely harassing? Are we going to see calves that are being utilized and they're just like speed running calves all the way down? Are we going to see people running, unless the Staff of Prophet got nerfed or nerfed or patched or something? I think someone mentioned something about that. Are we going to see some staffs being utilized from NOIR where they're basically going to try and get as many troops as they can over to the passes? I mean, there's obviously a lot of ways that this can play out, is my point. But the one thing that is an absolute is that this KvK is most likely going to be over. I would all but guarantee this KvK is going to be over at Zone 3. Unless something crazy happens, right? Which I don't foresee that happening. Because the only way that happens is if they all come together and do an agreement and say, okay, look, we're just going to build into our Zone 3s. We're not going to build into anyone's Zone 4s. We're not going to build into anyone's adjacent Zone 3s. And we're all going to have our big crescendo fight in the final zone. Now, if you're asking me what my opinion is on the matter, I personally would rather see that happen. I would rather see all of the sides come together and say, look, we are not going to enter each other's Zone 3s. We are going to fight it out in the final zone. Why? Because if you fight it out in the final zone, everyone has an equal opportunity to represent themselves and be balanced or at least favorably positioned in more of a fair way. Right? Because everyone can access everyone, right? Especially if you're doing your final battle in the middle. So if you want to know my thoughts, that's what it is. That's my expectation right now for this KvK based on how it's going. Because I'll tell you right now, it will be disappointing to me. And I hope it is for others as well. If you see where I'm coming from, where the level 4 pass is open and then they bang it out. Now, I'm okay if they want to just go back and forth and do pass rallies and stuff like that. Like, I'm okay with that. They want to do some statue fights, dope. But if you're going to just invade your opponent, now, understandably, you can do whatever you want. It's a war game. You play how you do, boo-boo. But what I'm saying is that as a spectator, as a viewer, as someone who wants this KvK to be the best that it can be and to see the most amount of fighting possible, you're just not going to get that. If you invade everyone's Zone 3s, it's going to end a lot faster than you think. And people's motivations are just not going to be as high. They're not going to be willing to exert and to expunge or expend themselves as much as you think they might. However, if everyone waits to battle it out in the final zone, yes, I understand. You got to wait a little bit longer. But you have the opportunity to basically wait a little bit longer for potentially days worth of PvP compared to maybe 1 day's worth of PvP. And if the Zone 2 matchup is any indication for what happened with TFS and BxS, right, is NOIR really going to be happy with a day's worth of PvP given how long they've already waited? Or would they rather try to have maybe days worth of PvP? Now, again, that's also a long shot because at the end of the day, BxS, SXB, EIS, and EIL would still have to show up, right? And they would still have to put that work in to make the PvP last a day or longer than a day, which, again, I think everyone would say we'd love to see that. Even if, right, we don't believe that this matchup, the way that it is currently, right, is the most favorable, but we understand that there are other external factors that went into why the matchup is the way it is, at least from those sides, right? And the explanation, right, or the reasoning that they provided. So that's my view on it, right? I would love to see everyone basically just have an opportunity to build in the final zone, even though the level 4 pass is open, duke it out in final zone, and then once people get pushed out, if either group gets pushed out of final zone, okay, then go ahead and attack from the level 4 pass. Right? Now, personally, when we talk about dev opportunities, is that, number one, the biggest mess up, the biggest opportunity here is the fact that level 4 passes are opening before level 5 passes. The way that the pass opening, in my view, should have gone is where you have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 5, and then level 4 passes. And then you basically go back from there. Right? Then eventually you'll open up the level 2, which is how they're doing it now, right? You're opening up the level 2 to get invaded for the home kingdom, but the one swap that should have been made was between 4 and 5. 5 should have opened up before 4, and then 4 should have opened up maybe a couple days after 5 did. That's one of the opportunities here. I think outside of that, I still am very happy with the map. I want to see how the map plays out for the entire season across a number of the KvKs, but already that is the one major thing. And I want to point out, they could still fix this before the level 4 pass is open, right? Obviously, it would probably take, however, probably them to expedite this, but it still could be fixed, right? Unless they come out and say, no, we can't do it, I would like to believe, I would like to hope, in the deepest parts of my soul, that this could potentially be fixed. And so now it's really up to the groups, because we don't want this to turn into the Bellerin map, where a number of the KvKs were decided in Zone 3, simply because the groups and the unions did not split up to take a west versus east approach maybe vice versa based on where my hands were on camera relation. But you guys get what I'm saying, right? Is that in a number of KvKs of the Bellerin map, it was over before anyone got to final zone. And so how disappointing is that for people? Again, like I said, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you think that them waiting to battle it out and fight in the final zone will yield a higher percentage chance of longer lasting PvP versus if everyone decides to fight it out in Zone 3? Because that's how I feel. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. What do you think about that? How do you feel that the KvK is going right now? Is it really a disappointment? Is it not a disappointment? Do you just think, no, it's a small bump in the road. We're going to get so much more action once Zone 3 and or Zone 4 pops, or even on the level 3 pass statues? Nothing to worry about. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.